In my predictive model, there are three pillars. Okay? The most important is game theory. Second is historical patterns. The third is eschatology. So I'll explain one by one, okay? Game theory, okay. So game theory, I used to play a lot of poker, Texas Hold'em poker. And when I'm playing poker, it's usually tournament poker. So I have a lot of time to kill. So I spend a lot of time just analyzing the metagame, okay? Like who are these people? Why are they doing what they're doing? And what I discovered playing poker is that there are no dumb players in the game. They're all rational, but they have their own different perspective on how the game should be played. So the worldview drives their strategy, which drives their action. And if you spend enough time just analyzing a player, you can figure out the person's entire strategy. And then I recognize that, okay, well, we can apply this metaphor to geopolitics, which is to say that each nation state has its own particular worldview as determined by its culture, its history, its political system. And then it's going to take this worldview and develop a strategy for how to navigate the world. And sometimes these worldviews will come into conflict with each other. And so once you start to recognize that the world is not set by a universal standard, but rather that the world is flexible and dynamic and open, and that each player is participating in a zero-sum game and trying to optimize his or her advantage in this game, then the world makes a lot more sense. But the problem with this is to do game theory properly, you would need perfect information, right? So go back to the poker table analogy where if I'm able to see everyone's cards, right? If I'm able to see everyone's minds, then I can predict exactly how they behave, right? But you don't have that perfect information. You can only make guesses. And this is even more true in geopolitics because you don't have access to the nation's top minds. You don't know who the leaders are. You don't understand how the political system works. You don't understand this dynamic, so it's very hard for you to gauge their behavior. So what I do next then is, fine, I don't have this perfect information. In fact, I don't have most of this information. But am I able to go back in history and look at events that are similar to today? And then am I able to draw analogies between the past and the present? And this will help me, okay? And the third thing I will look at is the idea of eschatology, okay? Eschatology comes from the Greek word eschaton, which means the end. So literally it means the study of the end. What it means is that each religion has its own understanding and theory of how the world ends or how we become reunited with God. And eschatology is often connected with the most extreme religious elements. And the reason why is that eschatology is very compelling. It's like a movie script. And it's as though people want to act it out. Because if you see the ending, right? If you know that Jesus can return, if you act out certain things, if certain things were to line up together, if they were to align, then Jesus would return, then that makes you much more determined and motivated to actually fulfill this prophecy, right? So the prophecy becomes a plan. And why eschatology is important is that people who do believe in this eschatology are much more motivated than others, much more energetic, much more cohesive than others, which means that they have more power than other people. And so they are the players to watch out for in this game. And so if you look at what's happening in the Middle East, you can make the argument that a lot of it is driven by eschatology in that you have these Christian Zionists, you have these religious Jews who believe that by manipulating certain events in the Middle East, by provoking a war there basically, you will usher in the end time. For Christian Zionists, it means the rapture and the return of Jesus. For religious Jews, it means the coming of the Messiah and the building of the third temple and the coming of the Messianic age. Okay? But also, what people don't appreciate is that not only is eschatology a prophecy and a plan, but it's also a hidden history. And the reason why is that we don't have much written history. Maybe since the Greeks, okay? But the Greeks go back, 3,000 years. So it's not that much. We've been around for at least 10,000 years. You got to Göbekli Tepe in the Ice Age cave paintings. Okay, so we go back a long time, but we don't have that history. In fact, we don't have most of our history. So what religion does is that religion takes the broad history and allegorizes it into narratives, into stories, into religious beliefs that capture the essence of this history. So if we believe that history repeats itself, or there's a certain pattern to history, what religion is it deciphers for you or reveals to you these patterns of history. So think of astrology, right? Astrology is trying to reveal to you the patterns of the stars, the movement of the stars, which then determines how events unfold in the real world, right? Well, eschatology is very similar to astrology in this way, in that eschatology is not just a plan, it's not just a prophecy, but it's also a hidden framework of how events will turn out, right? And if you look at eschatology, it's mainly about the decline of empire, the decline of civilization. And this has happened a lot in human history. And if you look at what's happening today from a historical perspective, it is the decline of empire, the decline of civilization. It's almost like the Bronze Age collapse. And so eschatology provides you with a pretty good framework of how this thing will unfold.